my name is Michael Fortune from folklore.ie, and I'm here today to chat to you about a folklore collection that I would have recorded in County Offaly back in 2010. Now, I'm producing this video as part of Heritage Week, and it's funded by Creative Ireland and supported by Offaly Library Services. But what I want to do is I want to, I suppose, revisit a collection that I would have produced I think it was around April, May 2010. And in some ways I produce folklore collections to length and breadth of the country, and sometimes it's until years later until I realise actually what I've done, because you're so caught up in the moment of producing the project, collecting the folklore, and then it just gets forgotten about. And as you can see behind me, I've collection after collections on DVDs. Nowadays most of the collections are done they're on hard drives, so they're produced straight up to social media or to YouTube, that kind of format. But one of the real principal things within the work that I do is, I grew up here in County Wexford, is the idea of collecting and sharing. Now, sharing is a word that I would use, and I suppose it was a word out of use with regard to folklore before the share button or the share icon ever became a thing on social media. Is the idea that this material isn't mine. It comes about due to conversations I have with people, and people open up and share their stories with me, whether they're superstitions or beliefs or little rituals or private family rituals or loads of lovely little very, very rich personal material. And in ways, one of the things that I would have done when I would have recorded this 11 years ago was the idea of capturing those stories, those voices, those faces, and those lovely gorgeous accents, and the stories, and sharing them back. Now, back in the day we would have produced DVDs because DVDs were all the rage, but nowadays you would get these material on social media, YouTube, that kind of format. So it's just new ways of collecting and new ways of sharing. So we're in a very, very healthy, a very interesting time at the moment where the local is very, very powerful. So one thing I'm going to do is for Heritage Week and with Offaly Libraries is to sit down and to actually listen again to the 21-minute collection that I recorded. Now, when I say 21 minutes, there was probably about, I'd say there could be 10-12 hours worth of material into recording all this, but I whittled it down to 21 minutes for a screened compilation. So I'm going to literally press play on my computer over here, and I'm going to stop and start, and if anything that springs to mind that I would have that comes to mind, I'll share them with you and show you what part of Offaly it came from, or where else you'll find that story in other parts of Ireland. And just to point out as well, I call the collection The Fall of the Leaf because I remember one of the people that I was working with, an older person I was working with, said to me that the bud on the bough and the fall of the leaf are very delicate times for older people, and that's a really interesting thing, and it really resonated with me back then, because we're working with an older age profile of people who have these stories, and sadly, and even in the case here of this collection, some of the people that I've recorded have since passed away. There's not a week goes by that I don't get an email or a phone call from someone saying, "Did you record my grandmother, my aunt, a neighbour of mine in such and such a place?" And that's certainly been the case here in this collection here from Offaly. Just to point out as well, the recording was produced in different daycare centres. It was part of a larger project with the Arts Office in Offaly County Council, and I would have recorded in Ballinagar, Clara, Birr, Tullamore, and in Edenderry itself. And I say this that there are two clips in this collection that always come back to my mind. There's two particular men that I use the whole time when I'm showing stuff. One little story what two men tell, and it's very, very funny. You'll see it yourselves. And there's also one magic moment here, and I'm actually remembering it through the physicality of what the woman told me. That woman has since passed away. So listen, I'm going to press play here, and let's have a listen, and let's enjoy this rich, gorgeous folklore from all over County Offaly.
If you built a new house, having built the house, and maybe you had it finished on Monday, well, you wouldn't go in, or you wait for Friday. Otherwise you're supposed to not have very good luck.
Good luck.
Yeah. So unlucky to move in on Friday. And people still do that.
Moving house, then you could never move house. If you were going to a new house or a different home, you'd have to go on a Friday. Friday was a lucky day to move. Wouldn't move any other day. And even if you heard tell of anyone else they got a new house and moving into it, they didn't move on Friday, say, "Oh God, how did they move today? They should have left it till Friday or gone to Friday because it's lucky."
Even if you're moving into a shop or starting up a shop, always start opening for Friday.
Yeah, that
was you'd look then.
That's true, yeah.
There was some years ago there was some funny sayings, but I mean, it's a lot of them could come true.
I'll tell you another thing, I had to go to confession after this one. I know they didn't do anything. You couldn't meat on a Friday, not even a sausage.
No.
So this day, I was expected at the time. So maybe I was excused then. But anyway, this day I took a awful fad for sausage, and I ate a couple of sausages on a Friday. I couldn't wait till I got to confession to tell him. He would hardly give me absolution. No, Lord mercy.
Yeah. Well, it's not the present priest anyway, so it's...
Oh, they're not the present priest now?
Oh, God, no.
I remember years ago, now I was raised with a granny and grandfather, and I remember years ago, on a Saturday evening, the potatoes and all would be washed for Sunday. They would not wash potatoes on Sunday morning or Sunday for a dinner. It'd have to be done on the Saturday evening. You never work on a Sunday. Never, ever, ever.
That is absolute music to my ears, to be able to hear those people's voices and to hear the stories, but also to witness their character, to witness the laughing, the messing, the way someone will remember, that woman who remembered about eating a sausage, and the other woman commented about it. Well, it's not the present priest. She says, absolutely gorgeous material. Just to give you an overview, that kind of that little section is all around days in the week. Days in the week are very important. There's certain days in the week you would do certain things, and as the people pointed out, you would never. You would always move on a Friday. Friday was seen as the lucky day. Saturday was seen as an awful unlucky day. Saturday's sitting. This is another saying you might some of your viewers might know. Saturday's sitting is a short flitting. It's basically Saturday wasn't the best day to move into a house or to do business or anything like that. That's tied in with a whole course. There's a little rhyme that goes through all the days in the week. And the days to do things, but Friday, as they always say, Friday was the lucky day. It's interesting as well. One of the women pointed out about washing potatoes on a Saturday night, because you wouldn't do any work on a Sunday. Let's have another listen to see what these people are talking about.
No one ever emptied out the ashes on a Monday.
On a Monday?
Did you?
No, I never heard of that one, no.
No one ever emptied out the... Of course, you'll use your good on me as well. No, did you ever hear that before? Not I told it to you today, and I thought it'd be get out.
You would never throw out ashes on a Monday because the poor souls were back visiting on the Sunday, and you never worked on a Sunday. And when they were going back, they used to go back on a Monday, right? And if you threw out the ashes would be only flying in the face of the poor souls.
It was always said the crows built on the 1st of March, but the crows don't build on a Monday, on a Sunday. If it was the 1st of March, they'd wait until Monday.
How did they know it's Monday?
I don't know, but that's it.
That's the story.
You'd never see a crow with a twig on a Sunday. No. Always 1st of March on Monday, but never on a Sunday, no.
It's always done in our place, the 1st Monday in August. And if you went out on the road and you found money on the road, you'd find thousands for that week, and it did happen. On the 1st Monday in August.
In August, yeah.
That last account of the 1st Monday in August, I'd never heard of it until that recording in Offaly, and I've never heard it since. So you're probably after missing the 1st Monday in August now, again, the time you see this video. But that woman said on the 1st Monday in August, that was the time to find money. There's just lovely accounts there again, and back to the Sunday, which reminded me as well. I got some great, I always remember, I got some great recordings and over in Birr, over in West Offaly, around All Souls Day and All Souls Night, and the idea is that you would never ever throw out ashes, or you'd never throw water on that night, to say that you would wet the souls. And it's really interesting the way those people had it, that you would one particular woman had a story that you wouldn't throw the ashes on a Monday because the souls would be walking around, and that was the first time I've heard of that as well. I've heard it all over in the country that you wouldn't sweep up and throw out the ashes on a Monday. That was supposed to be seen as awful bad luck. I don't know whether it's tying in with profit, because a lot of people people, anyone that's owned a business, would always like to get money on a Monday. You'd like to make something before you give away something on at the start of the week, at the start of your business, start of the business week. So I don't know whether it's tied in with that. There's a little bit of confusion there, but it's really interesting to hear her take on it. Her take on it was that the souls came back on the Sunday and they left on the Monday, and that's why you wouldn't throw it out. But as I said to you, I heard that before, and I think I've heard it here in Offaly as well, was the idea of not throwing out water on All Souls Night. They said the souls would be walking around and you'd wet the souls and the water would come back in your face. That's it. That's found around the country, but you'll find accounts in the school's folklore scheme, but to find accounts in living memory, that's what's really interesting here. This material is way these people were probably born in the 30s, 40s, 50s, so it's much later than the school's folklore scheme. So this is material that they would have grown up with in the 50s and 60s. So it's great that it's there. Just want to point out to you as well what is really, I suppose for me, I grew up in a house on the coast of Wexford where I suppose we had the beliefs were there, and then I suppose over the years you build up more and more material yourself, even in your head. And even when I'm recording people, if you notice, I put people in pairs because people help each other out. None of these people, by the way, would have ever been primed. It would have been me going into a daycare centre, getting to say, this is what I'm planning on doing, and they'd be looking at each other going, what is this fella talking about at all? And then over time I get to know, say, one particular person, say Mary, for example, and Mary say, oh, will come in and talk to me. And I say, she'll bring in Peggy or the woman beside you, and Peggy say, I've nothing to tell you at all. Next minute, two of them come in, sit down at a table, and we'd find a little quiet room, and we just start recording. And recording and chatting is the easiest thing in the world to do. And I always remember people saying to me when they'd finished, God, that wasn't as hard as I thought it would be at all. So it's a lovely way to do it, and it's lovely for loads of reasons, because for capturing the stories, but also for capturing that character and the fiddling and the messing and things that go on as well. That's really important, and the video camera helps to capture that. So listen, let's have a look at the next little bit.
When I was a child, if your tooth fell out, you blessed yourself 3 times with the tooth in your hand, and then you threw it over your right shoulder. I went around looking and see, could I find it anywhere? So I wouldn't beg it far enough away.
That if you meet a magpie on the road, they said if she flies to the right, you're in luck. If she flies to the left, you're in bad luck. And if you meet them, greet them, and turn the money in your pocket. Just give it a little shake, and everything goes all right. I don't know how true it is.
Never heard that one.
Never heard that one.
No.
No.
Well, just if you go out and you see the new moon and admiring and everything, and if you haven't money, you go in and put money into your pocket and turn it around, rattle it around in your pocket for luck. Yeah.
Now, isn't that lovely? Three little accounts there of money. One was the magpie. You turned the line in your pocket around to stop the magpie taking your money. While the other one was at the end was where you'd go out and you'd actually, if you saw a new moon, you'd put money in your pocket deliberately if you didn't have it, and you'd turn it, and it brought you luck for the year. There's an incredible amount of luck stories that are involved in our everyday life, really, when you consider it. The magpie is obviously the most superstitious, is the popular one up and down the country from Offaly to Donegal, and from Donegal down to Cork or back to Wexford, where the magpie landed. The magpie, the story goes, the magpie landed in the late 1600s here came in a storm into Wexford, and they spread up through the rest of the country, and the magpie folklore with the good luck and bad luck has lived on ever since. But one of the lovely things there was the first woman, she said when their tooth fell out years ago, you'd bless yourself and you'd throw it over your shoulder. Like, absolutely, that's again first and last time I've heard that account. And what's incredible is when you capture those little accounts like this, is that you capture it and it's a great conversation starter. So now if I was to record someone else in Offaly, I could ask them, did you ever throw your thing over your shoulder? And I guarantee I'd probably get 1 or 2 more people who did that as well. So that's what's really, really interesting about these little bits, and that's just a gorgeous visual again. That's the woman that I keep coming back to. She's since passed away. She just resonated with me the moment I met her, and also when I look back at it right now. So it's just gorgeous to hear those little things around luck. There's so much of our traditions and our folklore all around luck.
Like New Year's Eve, you go out the back door, and you're saying goodbye to the old year, and you're coming in the front door to welcome in the new year, and you do it 3 times for luck.
That'd be at 12 o'clock at midnight. Yeah.
Well, after 12 o'clock you shouldn't throw dirty water out of a bowl. or anything. Without saying hug 'em, tug 'em, dirty water, and blessing yourself after it.
And sure, I'm going to bed now with true holy water. I bless myself. And Mammy always said, and my daddy always said, he was great man to always sprinkle holy water. Bless yourself, sprinkle it at the door, at the back door, the front door before you go to bed, and it keeps away all evil when you're sleeping.
Power in holy water.
Yeah, just sprinkle your door.
If you wanted to wash out your holy water font, and all sediment would have collected in the bottom of it after a long time, after a while, like you know. So you took it down, of course, and you put a little drop of water in and you washed it around with your finger because it weren't too big. But you didn't throw it into the sink or into the bucket, you threw it into the fire because it was the holy water. Anything that was blessed was burnt.
In holy water.
Yeah, anything that was blessed seemingly was burnt.
That is absolutely powerful. 4 powerful stories there, folks. I could elaborate and talk for hours on either one of them. The last one about the idea of the last drop of water, the sediment of the last drop of water in the holy water font, of burning it. Absolute powerful. Again, great private little rituals that people would do. One of the classic ones is if a statue broke, you'd never throw it in a bin. You'd have to bury it in the ground to get rid of it if that's the right term. One of the other things which is lovely was which a woman just mentioned there was hug 'em, dirty water. Now there's back to my All Souls night and the idea of throwing out water and throwing out ashes. My mother here in Wexford had a hug of the teapot jack. It was this little verse that they would say if they were throwing out the empty teapot years ago before there were sinks, to be emptying the teapot out in the yard, and they'd say they'd throw it out because there was someone walking outside that didn't want to wet him. That's the story. Up in Mayo, I remember recording a woman saying hug of the tishka salach. So this is back here. There's a bit of Irish and a bit of English in that saying due to the ritual of throwing out something. And she said after 12 o'clock. They always kind of said, I suppose in the dark, people were afraid of their lives in the dark years ago. The dark was a different time. The pukas and the ghosts and the devil knows what walked the earth or travelled after 12 o'clock in the dark. The really interesting one was always on All Souls night. But there were just got lovely accounts of water, and it's lovely that husband and wife there. I recorded them in Ballinagar. I remember recording them. And the power of holy water, he says, and the idea of the ritual of going around and putting it on the corners or putting it in their bedrooms or putting it in places all around protection and bringing protection and protecting you and protecting your home and protecting your family. Very, very rich material indeed.
First of May, when you now wash your face inside, you go down to the grass.
Yeah.
And you wash all your face with the dew and let it dry on. Right.
And your arms and your legs and your feet and everything was washed in the dew with the grass.
You used to hear for a good complexion, you go out and wash your face in the dew. That's one on the May morning. Yes,
the May morning dew.
Wash your face with the dew on the grass, whatever. Yeah,
and your skin would always be good.
Good.
Yeah, it always be good.
So yeah, that's when you did.
I did.
Well, it's only what we used to hear too as well, that to walk in the May dew for corns or bunions, or even an old donkey that had laminitis, you let him out in the bog for a week or a fortnight and it used to cure him.
If you get married in May, you'll rue the day. And that's how it happened. Because the first man and the woman that first put in for a divorce, they were married in May.
Yeah, married in the... I never ruled the day. I was 56 years married to the one man.
Yeah.
Oh, isn't that just brilliant, isn't it? Absolutely. One person saying if you marry in May, you'll rue the day, and the other woman saying I'm 50-some years married and I didn't regret, I never rued the day. That's one of the lovely things as well, one of those calendar dates that we have in Ireland. May is a very powerful month, very, very powerful month in Offaly. What was the idea of getting married? That was a common one. If you marry in May, you'll rue the day. There were certain things you wouldn't do in the month of May, and that was one of them. One of the lovely things that the earlier people were talking about the power of the May dew. May is the start of our summer, Bealtaine, and 6 months down the line, the opposite side, it's the start of winter, the 1st of November, Samhain. going into the going into the dark. You go from light into one and dark into the other, and they're the most pivotal months in a year. And awfully, like many Leinster counties had a really strong tradition, and you kept it up because I've seen them on the sides of the road, and I've put May bushes up in Crinkle as well over in Birr over the years back in 2010, 11 when I was working in Offaly. Is you mark the month of May with your May bush. You put your May bush up. I've seen May bushes in Ferban over the years, very, very strong. You go to the school's folklore scheme, you'll still see it, but you don't even have to go that far. Look around what's happening to you, and your neighbours will be. I guarantee you'll find someone putting them up still, and that memory is still there. People remember doing it, maybe to drop doing it, but May was very powerful, and there's always a bit of magic in May, and it's the idea of the May Dew had great power, great healing power, and as the women were saying, you put it in your face to keep you with a lovely complexion. And one woman barely said at the end there, I could hear her saying, she said that it also protected against sunburn. So there you have it now, no sun cream, a bit of May Dew will do the job. And that man with the most gorgeous accent and saying, if you've got an old donkey with laminitis, send him out into the bog for a week or two in the month of May and it'll cure all ills. Absolutely gorgeous, gorgeous, gorgeous material. Let's have a listen.
Before a wedding now, when we get married in the family or that, you'd always, we had to have a good day for the wedding, of course, and you'd be put out to Child of Prague for the night before. And this was you'd have a fine day now and you put her out the night before. I remember my daughter getting married and I forgot to pour her out and I woke up in the middle of the night. Oh Lord, I said I never brought the statue and I got up and I poured it out. And she had a grand day. Lovely day.
A red-haired woman on the road early in the morning, it's a class of bad luck. There was an old farmer up beside us, he used to be going, and if you met a red-haired woman, he turned around and bring home his cattle, you wouldn't sell them. Mr. Chisel, yeah.
We were told never to let a red-haired woman in on New Year's Day. It was bad luck. And I often remember it. I often stood outside the door talking to them. Rather than let them into the house, did you not?
No.
No, that's... I often heard that now, and I did it.
If there was a person in the neighbourhood that had the name of a bit of evilism in them, that if they came near the place when there was a cow on for calving, or even if they were churning, that the butter wouldn't for them on the churn for them, like, you know what I mean? That was all. Maybe it was something that it had happened whether she came or not, but that's what they used to put it down to anyway.
My grandmother had a little stool and she used to always, a little three-legged stool she'd go off and leave in the middle of the cow. And we always called the cow Nancy. One particular cow was called Nancy. And she'd kneel down and she'd get the bucket, she'd tilt the bucket between her knees. And she'd milk. And when she'd have milk in, she'd get her tongue. And with her tongue, you know the high bone that's sticking up in the cow's back, she'd always have the tongue just on the top of the froth of the milk and put the side in the grass and she'd say, God bless you, Nancy. Every time she mentioned, she'd always say, God bless you, Nancy.
God bless you, Nancy. That's the clip that always resonates with me, because it's just just something so lovely about it. You know, I can see, and I hope you can see it as well. You can almost see the cogs turning in people's heads when I'm having those conversations with them, where they're remembering back to an aunt, or remembering back to their own mother or father. And that to me is always really powerful. And that's the powerful thing about video, that is always captured. I've been saying this since late 1990s, since I've been recording on film, is you capture something else that's going on there. I suppose by me sharing as well, and people feeling comfortable, people will come back with stuff to me. So it's a two-way street. I'm performing, they're performing, and we're both sharing. But that... So much of our, again, as I said to you at the start, so much of our material is around protection and look, especially protection and look when we think back of our milk yield, of how important cows were to us, how important cattle were to us, how important butter was to us. And that's not long ago. We're talking, we're talking 50s, 60s, still very important to us. But for many rural people who only go into town once every couple of weeks to get a basic food provisions, you were fairly self-sufficient. And you valued and you looked after your stock, and you valued and you had great there was a lot made of what you had. One of the things you'll see there, the person said if someone called into your house, you'd have to put their hand to the churn or else take the look at the butter with them. That's a common one up and down the country as well. Very strong there, you can see it in Offaly as well. Now some people said it was also a form of cheap labour. Someone come into your house and you put your hand to it. But there's a lot around that. Even around the 1st of May, putting up the May bush was nothing, certainly wasn't a hippy dippy kind of new age thing. The first putting up the May bush was to keep the fairies away. That's why people put it up, to keep the bad luck away, stop the fairies milking your cows, stop the fairies coming into your yard. That's the narrative with the May bush and around protection at the start of summer. But it's just lovely. I just loved it that last story. It just strikes me. And just seeing it, and I don't think I've ever seen it. I've never seen milk on the hind of on the leg of the hip of a cow. But I can visualize it. Due to that woman's storytelling, and I suppose that's the beauty of this as well. These stories are great because even if you close your eyes, you can hear the person talking, and you can make your own visuals to go with it. And I suppose that's the beauty of any kind of storytelling. Anyone that's got young children like ourselves or grew up with young children, we know they're the kind of stories we tell our children, and they visualize them. They don't need to be manifested in a big super film or manifested in a big drawing or an illustration or a book. Your mind fills in all those blanks for you, and that's what's magic. And as I'm listening and watching this, I do love the visual, but I also am very, very conscious these will work without the visuals as well. Without, you could listen to it by just closing your eyes and hearing the people talking. Anyway, gorgeous material, and we've got about 10 minutes left, so let's have a little on our lesson.
My neighbour, he believes in holy water, and he never sows anything without blessing. I think he goes to the four corners of the field. Great believer in holy water.
Easter Monday, wasn't it? Yeah. Monday, Tuesday, Monday was the 3 rogation days. The holy water will be blessed on the Sunday. You'd bring it home from the church, fill your bottle and go out in the field with it and go to the four corners and sprinkle it in each corner. Bless yourself then, that's it. Go to the next field, do the same.
They used to go down to St. Kieran's grave, and used to bring back a little complement of soil from the grave and put it in the four corners of the field that the wereworm was active in, and it used to exterminate him. Yes, yeah, not right.
It was, yeah. Well, they believed in it.
Yeah, they believed in it.
Now, here we go again. Where will I start with that material? Absolutely gorgeous. That last story about taking the 4 little bits of clay from St. Kieran's. That's St. Kieran. I think St. Kieran's well is Kieran's tree. I've passed by it a few times. You people in Offaly will know better than me. And it's funny now. There's a St. Kieran's down in Wexford as well as Sir Kieran's down in Wexford as well. So it's interesting. These early Christian sites or early Christian saints, they travelled around. You'll find them all over the country. But that's lovely. What's really magic there is that man's story of the bits of soil. That's really, really interesting. That's really, really rich. Now you go to the four corners, and it's the other people talking before him were talking about blessing the water. And again, any will know you would bless the water at Easter. You get Easter water, it was called, and you get Easter water at Mass and Easter, probably Easter Saturday. You get things blessed, and you'd use that then usually on May Eve or May Day, usually May Eve, and you would go and you'd bless the four corners of the field. And some people, by blessing the four corners of the field, when they would walk and they'd make the sign of the cross on the land, and you would bless the land at the same time. It's tied in with probably boundary marking as well, probably pre-landing closure stuff there going on as well. But the ritual is of blessing the land, and blessing the land was tied in with one thing. It was for the crops, to growing crops, but also there was a thing called a wireworm, and with different names, leatherjacks, there were different names for them, and they were a particular thing that would come up and eat the crops, and that's what people blessed them. Now, in the holy water, obviously, as the people were saying, there was great power in holy water, they said. But one lovely thing that one of the men, the husband and wife there in Ballinagar had mentioned, they mentioned this thing called the 3 rogation days. And the 3 rogation days were the 3 days before Ascension Thursday. They were the Monday, Tuesday and Wednesday, as he pointed out. And listen, I haven't watched this in years, this video in years, but it's so lovely to hear it. And the idea is you bless the land on those 3 days as well if you didn't bless them. So that was probably the Christian thing. These rogation days, that tradition was very strong within the church, within the Catholic Church, but you'll find it within the Anglican Church as well over in England, and you'll also find it down through France. The rogation days are a big thing. There were parades where the land was blessed, where people would do these parades through the fields. You see them in France. You look back at loads of paintings, you'll still being done, and it's still thing to do. They still do it in parts of Brittany still as well, where they bless the land on these 3 days. So it's incredible to find that that tradition was in Offaly as well. That tradition of the 3 rogation days wasn't to be found in every county. So just to point that out. But it's all tied in with water, back to your dew, back to your water, your spring well, and blessing the land. So powerful stuff.
No, but I remember when I was young now too, that when the holly go up, you couldn't touch it for the 12 days. I see them now and they're putting it up a month before Christmas and they have it down before Christmas is over. Well, you never went near the holly for the 12 days and you never took it down. But one time I was at home and I was sweeping the floor and a bit of holly fell down. It was on the floor. And there was a big grate that time and fire. There was no ranges or stoves or nothing. And I picked up the piece of holly and I threw it into the fire. My grandmother I never slept for a whole month. You'll burn in the lower pit of hell. Your life won't be worth living. You don't know what you've done, Katie, she says to me. And I said, what? You burnt the holly before? And I said, I didn't know. Well, that's a mortal sin. And you'll well, Lord God, such a lectures I got. And I never, honest to God, I never slept. I thought the devil was coming for me. I was afraid to sleep.
And I'll tell you another lucky thing is when you often heard of that, getting the straw out of the crib. You're supposed to win money to do it.
The day the crib, Christmas Day, the crib is put up, before it's taken away, you pick 3 little pieces and you stick them together, make a cross, and it's to keep away all sickness and all harm.
Yeah.
And I think I have this year's straw.
Oh, you could.
In my handbag somewhere.
You could have that. Oh.
I always get a bit of it.
I know I was lucky anyway to get the straw.
Yeah.
Again, absolutely. I'm only processing this 11 years later, folks. That last account is of taking the piece of straw from the crib at Christmas, putting in your purse for a look. And that woman on the left hand side said she's take 3 pieces and stitch them together and make a cross. And then she goes, I have a piece of my handbag. I actually have a piece of my own grandmother's straw from her handbag. She's since passed away, but I have some of hers as well. So it's just powerful to hear that. Another take that I hadn't actually processed. Obviously, I heard it 11 years ago, but I haven't processed it since. This is the beauty of this process for me, folks, is the idea to be able to look back. As I said to you at the outset of this press and record, was the idea of being able to look back and kind of reflect on it. That's absolutely gorgeous to be able to hear that account, very, very particular. And then the bit about the holly falling down and not taking down the holly until after the 12 days of Christmas, that's absolutely powerful. And the way she said that it was our mother or our grandmother said she'll burn in the lower pit of hell, she said, for burning the bit of holly. It's incredible, isn't it, really, when you think about it. But one of the lovely things as well, which I'm sure you'll find, is holly was kept up. There's loads of these, I keep stressing to people, loads of these dates are all related. It's like a little fine thread running through them all during the whole course of the year. And I know that some people would never, when you take down the decorations at Christmas, you take them down on the 7th of January, and sometimes people would keep up a little piece of holly, and they would use that then to light the fire on Shrove Tuesday or Pancake Tuesday for the pancakes. And you'd use that then, and you'd obviously use up all your eggs then on Shrove Tuesday. And then you wouldn't eat them then until come Easter Sunday then as well. And then when you eat your eggs on Easter Sunday, your hen or duck eggs back then, one thing that you would do, and some of your listeners might remember this, is you would keep the eggshells from Easter Sunday until the 1st of May, and put them up into your May until you put them up in your May bush. So that little fine thread runs through so much of our stuff. Let's have another listen to what these men are talking about.
If you were out in the park with saying, and there'd be headers and everything like that, and one minute it'd be smooth as everything we got. Actually, this bush would come, and they said that was the fairies crossing across.
Yeah, that's fairy crossing. Fairy crossing, yeah, that's right.
Fairy crossing the heather, And you're never supposed to cross the path again.
Yeah.
It's the dangers. You never could go over there where you seen the heather moving. No, that was an army of fairies, used to call it.
Yeah, an army of fairies.
You have to say something when you see a fairy glass.
Godspeed all travellers.
Aye, Godspeed all travellers.
Yeah.
Yeah, but the travellers are the travellers themselves are the fairies, and they have a speed up. So you just say Godspeed all travellers.
Bless yourself and say Godspeed all travellers.
Yeah, bless yourself. And
if you could stand up again, it will hit you, but it'll take you.
Willie the Wisp now, he'd lead you astray. He'd come in the form of a light, and you're following the light. Now that time there was no lights or anything along the roads, everything was completely pitch dark. And you followed the light and he'd lead you astray, and you'd have to stay wherever you were all night, wherever he'd lead you to. The next morning till it get bright, you see where you were. I often heard tell of Willie the Wisp, I did indeed.
Now, 3 lovely stories there for you, and absolutely perfect for this time of year in the height of summer, because the first 2 people mentioned about the fairy blast, or a shigiha would be called in other parts of the country, but it's the idea of a fairy wind, a wind coming out of nowhere, basically a mini typhoon or a mini tornado would come, and it would spin through the bogs, and it would spin through a field of hay, and sometimes it will take the hay and spin it all up and move it. And a lot of the older people would always say, move one cock of hay over a ditch to another cock of hay. But they had lovely ones there. The couple again from Ballinagar were saying, he'd always say it was Godspeed all travellers. And see, this is the thing, we know now through science that was a wind, that was a completely natural occurrence, but with that generation, and obviously this stuff is not coming just from that generation, that's coming right back. That could be a couple of centuries, or probably a couple of millennia old, this idea of us trying to understand this wind. Where would this little mini whirlwind, or where would that come from? How would we reason? How did that come about? How would it make a line down through a bog? How would it move the hay from one field to another? And always in our cases, we always try to put it to someone else. Other parts of the country, they will call it a wind devil, or a witch. But here we've always put it down to the poor old fairies. The fairies, we use the brackets fairies for everything. So if anything at all goes astray, or anything queer happens, the fairies did that, the fairies did that, fairies did the other. And in this case it was the same. It was the fairy wind, or the fairies going through the bog, or you to lie down, because the fairies did take it. That was the thing as well, the fairies would take it. So it's really interesting, whatever the way we use that, and it's very particular. You'll find that kind of natural occurrence in a lot of the Midlands counties, very, very strong in Midlands counties compared to coastal counties like here where I am in Wexford. You wouldn't hear it as much as where there's a lot of flatter land. So it's just lovely to get those accounts again, and all different, and even though these things might only happen every couple of years, or people might witness them, those stories are still ingrained in people's minds, and that's what's really special about this thing, about listening to this material too. Let's have a listen. We're near the end.
It's a cock crows 3 times.
That was when I was dying, James.
What?
That was when.
No, but that's what they were saying. If you hear a cock 3 times, remember a Lord heard that there's a person on the way out, them dying. Oh yeah, there's some terrible yarns years ago. Of course, we were all so innocent. We thought took it in. We're really, but nowadays the young people wouldn't swallow things like that.
Oh, they're too cute.
They're too cute.
If a cock come into the house and crowed, you see, it's bad luck.
Bad luck, I think.
And what else then?
And
very late at night.
Yeah, that's it. It's something, it's a sign of a death.
And if a robin comes in the window, it's a sign of a death.
Sign of a death, yeah.
And that does happen.
And that does happen.
Oh, what else now?
Or it's like a robin, if a robin comes into the house. Some people go as mad when a robin. I don't, I counted fish roe. I won't believe it, because I had a pet robin that used to come in, and I'd say the cat must have got at him. He's gone anyway, and I used to regularly be outside the door waiting for me to bring out something.
And the next thing he started coming in, they said, that's not lucky. My mother died the night the robin came into our house. And I said, that's only fish rugs.
Yeah, they said it's a sign of death if the robin comes in.
Robin comes in. I could never understand that. To this day, I can't.
I'm going to pause that there because it's worth reflecting on. That last little segment was incredible. It started off with the two men from Edenderry, and one of the men has passed away. And I love that clip because I love the way the man behind him gets the giggles. Man, he's originally a Tipperary man, gets the giggles and starts to laugh. Just to have a whole recording of them two men together, I just remember that there now, and it was all of that. It was like, it's like the classic Irish thing where someone will tell you a story as fact and then they'll wink at you at the same time. And it's just a lovely Irish trait that the storytelling is important as well. You know, don't ever lose sight of the entertainment value of the story. But it's interesting what he said, the man at the start. He said, if you told young people now, they wouldn't believe you. It's only old rubbish. And that's an interesting one because we mentioned before that the previous video was about the science of the whirlwind coming and how we try to understand it. And how do we, like, one of the things here which we're dealing with is we're dealing with death and people passing away. And how we try to understand that, and how we try to understand that through the signs that we get, whether it's the banshee or whether it's 3 knocks or whether in this case there was a cock crowing at the door. And there are little interesting ways in which we try to understand those things in our lives, and death obviously is one of the strongest things in so many of our lives. It comes to us all, and it's an interesting one. And that last clip of those two women said that Robin came in. That's a classic story of Robin bringing news, and she called them pishogues, or they're called different stresses of pishogue around the country. That's the word, pishogues, different pronunciations of it, but people didn't believe it. Yet when the story rounds up, she talks about her own mother passed away, but yet she doesn't believe it. So it's an incredible one. When I think those stories that are very, very strong, once to get in, they're very, very hard to get out, and it's very particular to us. I find it's in us. Maybe I don't know why. It probably could be religious upbringing as well to some degree, with the power of story, growing up with story from day one. But it's just an interesting to hear that woman there say it like that. Let's have a listen. We're near the end.
Do you ever stop the clock when anyone dies? When anyone had died in the house, the clock was stopped.
No.
You ever hear that one?
And what was happened to her?
I don't know.
Yeah.
No. And the clock stopped the clock.
I remember
my grandmother.
Yeah.
When she died.
God bless her.
Huh?
I say God bless her.
Yeah, if you heard the banshee in the morning, there was a death in the
banshee cried 3 times at her door, and then someone died.
That's right, yeah. It banged 3 times, that's right. Well, that was always the yarn down the year. Strange say, you'd never hear anything about banshees nowadays. You'd never hear them even mentioned, would you know?
But down where my mammy came from, the lads were always playing pitch and toss money, and they heard the banshee a good bit away. But with one lad, he was hardy and he didn't care like where the night fell on, and he kept playing away. But he heard around and he said, "Oh lad," and he imitated the banshee. And the next thing, she was beside his foot, sitting beside him. He looked round and seen her with a big long head of hair. He shouldn't have imitated her.
I suppose there were out years ago, or maybe probably certain families.
Carried a comb and combed her hair, big head of hair down her back.
I heard the banshee. A small little white woman. She used to cry some families.
That's right.
Did you hear that?
I did.
And the Cannons. Mrs. Cannon died. I was only after going to Coolfin at the time. Mrs. Cannon died, and she used to cry the Cannons. And when that night, I go out and listen to see could I hear her to cross the field.
That's right.
To cross the field. And you could hear the mournful roar. A little white woman with long white hair.
That's it.
Is that right?
Heard that, yeah.
No. That's all I have now.
Again, all the classic stuff is cropping up there. The banshee, 3 knocks, and announced her death. That woman that would have recorded in Birr with the dresser behind, talking about, she follows the cannon, she says. Follows the cannons Absolutely gorgeous. Even the word, the term, that phrasing, and that's one thing you want to point out as well, is that some of these stories are actually passed on. They're like fiddle tunes. They're like tunes. They've got the same rhythm and structure. She follows the canons, or she'd come after you, or there's certain phrases sometimes you'll always find. You'll find them from North Offaly to South Offaly, from the east to the west. That same kind of structure, and then you'll find that same repeated thing like a tune in the counties around it too. One of the classic things that the women were saying was the banshee would have a comb. Obviously, that was the classic thing, and any of us would old enough to remember, we'll always be told to never pick a comb off the road, or never pick a rack off the road, because it belonged to the banshee, and she'll come after you that night. You'd have to redden it with a fire tongs and put it out to the fire, or else she'd take the hands off you. That's the kind of classic story. And again, let's say that classic kind of rhythm. That's a really important thing to point out, to look at as well, is that lovely rhythm that you get within, and that's tied in with accent. And accent and dialect and speech as well, that you won't get really as much when you read an account. And until you hear it, that's what's really important. And local accent has never been so important in Ireland, you know, because there's a dilution going on around the country, and these older people have accents. That's another really important thing that I think these recordings will have and stand the test of time when we're all dead and gone. But listen, that's the classic story about the banshee. Let's have a we're very near the end now. Let's have a listen to these two men from Edenderry.
I have a bit of a story about an uncle of mine. He said he'd seen fairies. I don't know what he had known, just outside the town, near Carrick. He said he was young one time, when he was young and going to school, and all these little men came down, rolling down the hill, and Carrick Hill they call it.
Yes, I know.
And he said every year from then on, he believes it completely. He said no one take from me, he did see them. And whether he did or not, no one ever could find it. But every year before he died, he can always come down to Edenderry and go to the same place to see could he see any of them again.
The tree in the middle of the field, that's the fairy tree they call it.
Yeah,
you're not to cut that
lone
down.
Tree.
Yeah, you never cut it down. Because always something happens to you, right?
Yeah, you never cut that.
Yeah, this is what we were told.
No, you never take a fort out of the place. Because I know a family that they got the farm and they took the fort out of the field, and they never had an hour's look after. Not an hour's look after. And the man that owned that farm and fort and the whole lot, he wouldn't cut a plant in it.
No.
The white thorn bush is supposed to be very unlucky, to touch it even. And if you touch a white thorn bush, you never look for the rest of your days. It can happen, and I suppose that it does happen. We mightn't think it, but when you look back and hear stories from people, you have to believe them. That kind of way. Definitely.
Well, what you've heard is the truth now.
Yeah.
And God bless
yes.
you.
I get stiff when I sit down.
Oh, I don't be able to get up.
That was great. Now, thanks very much.
That was great now. Thanks very much. That has to be one of my favourite endings of any ever recorded folklore recordings I've ever made. I just absolutely love it. I love, he used the word definitely. He said, oh, that's the truth. He tells you the story, and then that wink in your eye, that this is the story, and then you make what you want of that. And it's just incredible. I love it. I love that ending. I just love the way that ended. As you can hear, they were talking about a lone bush. You never cut down a lone bush to get bad luck. And the people before them were talking about the fairies. We were mentioning looking at the banshee in the previous clip, so we're looking at the fairies now. And never a person wouldn't touch a ra, wouldn't touch a fort, wouldn't touch one of these places. And that is that superstition stands to this day. It's really interesting as well for you to look around you, even for your place names, any of our place names in Offaly, and you straddle because you're in the Midlands. You've got an interest in your place names. You'll have place names with lists in them. That's again a reference to a fort. You will places with ra in them again. Any place with a ra and a list. Or it's the same name for the same kind of structure, depending on where you are in the country. But it's incredible looking at those two women. The silence of one woman was really interesting. One woman was saying about a man, didn't mention his name, bad luck that happened. Now I could do that story anywhere in the country. That same thing will come back. People won't mention his names, and you'll know that someone is thinking of themselves of something that happened somewhere else. You know, again, the bad luck that was attributed to destroying these places, because they were sacred for so many reasons. They were sacred. The fairy forest were sacred for many reasons. They were sacred because they were old enclosures that people lived and farmed in, but also because they were believed that the fairies lived in them, in brackets again, but also there was unbaptized children buried in a lot of those forts around the country. I've recorded that account, the length and breadth up and down the country, and I'm sure it's no different in Offaly as well. So they were sacred for loads of different reasons, and obviously then people are very, very protective of them for that, and that memory runs deep within communities and within villages and within families as well, deep within families. Listen, I hope you enjoyed my ramblings and me going for a little bit of a walk with you through this collection. As I said, it's called The Fall of the Leaf. It was recorded around Offaly in 2010, and it's lovely for me to get an opportunity for Heritage Week to go back and revisit this and to reconnect with the material. Thanks a million to Offaly Libraries for asking me to do this, and I'd encourage you, if any of you are watching, if you've got an interest in folklore and customs and things that are very particular to your own area, your own village, just have a talk to the people around you. Life has never been easier now. We've all got mobile phones in our pockets, and we can record our parents and grandparents and everyone and neighbours with their permissions, obviously, and we can hear their voices in years to come and hear their stories in years to come. Just to let you know as well, the DVD, The Fall of the Leaf, is available in the libraries, Offaly Libraries. I know it's available in Edenderry, and it's also up on YouTube, but it's available in the libraries if you want to borrow it as well. I'll put the YouTube link here underneath here now in a second for you, so you can actually look at the link of it. And if you want to follow any more material, follow me on folklore.ie, and I hope you have a great Heritage Week. It's a great account. It's a great chance for us all to connect with our rich heritage here in Ireland, and in particular in County Offaly. So thanks a million, and thanks for watching.